really the best candidate for an easement is a landowner that is really interested in preserving their land.
Welcome back to the Peddler Perspective. Today, our guest is Mary Vandevord, President and CEO of HeartLands Conservancy. We will be diving into conservation easements, what they are, how they work, and why organizations like Heartland Conservancy are playing such an important role in keeping farmland being farmed for generations to come. Mary, welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks for having me today.
You bet. Well, let's get started. If you tell us a little bit about your background, what drives you, what brought you to Heartland Conservancy, and let's hear it.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I grew up in Madison County in a rural area. My parents had farmland, and so I grew up very blessed to be around farms. And also, we had woods, and it was a really great childhood. And I remember uh, as I was growing up, watching development kind of creeping towards us as we had subdivisions and other things kind of coming around our land. And I remember as a kid wondering, well, that's interesting. It's kind of changing around here, and what happens to all the farmland and the woods when all of these developments come toward us. And so, as I grew up, I went to school and left for a few years and came back in 2014 to the region and found Heartlands Conservancy because it was an organization that was dedicated to preserving farmland and the places that I grew up loving and loving the area for. And ended up getting a job. Have a background in urban planning, and so I understood a lot about how development processes work and how they can affect people and the community. So Heartlands was a great fit, and then a couple years later, I ended up taking over as the president and CEO. And so since then, I've been working with people throughout the region to help conserve their land in many different places. We started out as a land trust that just serves the St. Louis metro area. Now we serve all the southern third of Illinois, so 36 counties in the southern part of Illinois, and it's been really great.
Wow. Okay. So that's so basically though, where did you go take your venture to wherever you left that brought you back to Madison County and be thankful you're here.
Yeah, I had gone to school in Indiana for a little while, and then when I graduated there, I moved to Oklahoma and got my master's degree and spent a couple years working for some small towns in Oklahoma. After that, I moved to Scottsdale, Arizona, and worked there for about 8 years. Doing their planning work, and they'd had a really strong preservation program. So I kind of fell in love with the whole preservation thing when I got there. And then when I had my daughter, we decided we wanted to be closer to grandparents and family, so we came back to the Edward. I live in the Edwardsville area now.
Yeah, it's a beautiful area where that is. So you went and visited the red dirt, found some of
Yep,
that sand, but yeah, that's really true that the Oklahoma, it really is red dirt down there.
it really is.
That
Yeah,
it
yeah, and the
really is.
rivers run red.
Yep, if you listen to the country song, it's a true statement. Whatever they say, those
Definitely,
red dirt roads, there's not rock, there's red dirt. So,
it's true.
but yeah, so that brought you back to Illinois, and the Edwardsville area is a very beautiful area, and you look at that in the 30 something counties that you're looking at now in Southern Illinois. There's some interesting terrain and
Mhm.
different. I mean, we've got everything from large hills and rocks to fertile farm ground. So that's going to be that diversity is something that's going to be I think would actually be interesting to kind of look at and work through. So, but if we get into that, so kind of what exactly is a conservation easement to get that answered? That way, we'll start out with there.
Yeah, so to back up a little bit, Heartlands Conservancy is a conservation land trust, and so our whole goal as a nonprofit organization is to help people in the region conserve their land. And one of the ways we do that is through a tool called a conservation easement. We sometimes refer to them as conservation agreements. And it's basically a voluntary legal agreement that permanently limits certain types of development on your land And at the same time, it lets you continue to own it and use it and pass it on to your heirs or sell it. Each easement really is unique, and we tailor them each to reflect the goals of the landowner. So, for example, some people want to keep their land as farmland, and so we can write the easement so it's protecting the farmland going into the future after the family has passed it on to an heir or in someone else's lifetime.
So yeah, so that's one kind of there with the looking at the farm ground, kind of staying farm ground.
Hmm.
The things that I kind of point out there, some of that that I know a lot of these you can actually still log the timber and things to that effect. Also, does this something that actually gets into the wetlands? Also, or is that something that Heartland kind of doesn't necessarily get into, or is that something that's in Heartland's wheelhouse, or is that a different organization that kind of whenever you get into wetlands?
Heartlands protects all kinds of things. So, in addition to farmland, we also do preservation and restoration of natural areas that would include wetlands, which are extremely important to the ecosystem and for stormwater. We also protect and preserve things like prairies and forests and woods. Sometimes historic areas will preserve, like Native American mounds, for example. All of those would qualify for easements and other restoration projects.
Yeah, so there's been a like I said, so Brenda and I have been involved with we've actually sold multiple properties that had the easements on them, and then actually reviewed some documentation, not actually through Heartland, but through people that wanted to sell. And we're asking the questions about how this works and what goes on. But one of them that came up, it was actually one of those wetlands. Basically, Heartland was going to get and maintain the property after somebody else did the work to it. Is that what would that be referred to as, or is that something that actually how does give me a better understanding on what that kind of man would be? And this was actually off of Sawmill Road over in Perry
Mhm.
County, so I don't know if you
Mm.
remember the name of it or
Yeah,
not,
yeah.
but yeah, that was an interesting one that I hadn't seen before. On if you can go down to a little bit about that, and I should have gave you some insight up front that might
That's
come up,
okay.
but here you go off the cuff.
Sure, yeah, no problem. That one was a specific situation that was associated with mitigation banking, which is where usually there's like a development or a company has done something to impact a wetland or a stream or something, and they have to make up for that according to the law. And so they can find another piece of ground and restore it back to wetland or whatever they need to in the agreement. And part of that agreement, the Corps of Engineers or the state often requires it to be preserved forever. And so that's where we can step in and hold the conservation easement on the property. And the mitigation banking company usually does the restoration of the wetland. We protect it. And then sometimes they ask us to take over the management of that in the future. We don't always do that, but sometimes they have us that arrangement where after it's been restored, then we come out every year and remove honeysuckle and things like that that would be degrading the wetland that they've already restored. So that's a very specific situation, but we do have quite a few of those throughout Southern Illinois.
Gotcha, gotcha. So that was yeah. So basically, it was part of a mitigation type
Yeah.
situation where that one was because that was one that we got that I was absolutely it was got involved with and didn't really fully understand how that all worked. So
Yeah,
but
the great thing is the landowner can still like use it for hunting and other things like that. So it's a pretty attractive for people who are into recreational land. It just has to stay in wetland and forest.
right, yeah, that one actually stayed in farm ground and hunting is where
Yeah.
that one actually stayed where that stayed at as far as where that one goes. So some of the things that if we get into this and we talk about what is a good candidate for easement, is it the land that's the best candidate, or is it really the owner of the land that's the best candidate? So what do we really look at first? What's the owner's needs or what's the land's needs? How do we kind of judge that?
Uh, Good question. I really think it starts with the landowner, and really the best candidate for an easement is a landowner that is really interested in preserving their land or preserving land for the future, for future generations. So people who want to make sure that it will continue to be farmed into the future, or that the woods on the property will continue to be woods long after they're gone. People who are really farsighted and looking ahead and wanting to preserve and keep the beautiful character that Southern Illinois is. That's where we would start. That's the best candidate, is someone who's just really interested in it. And there's all kinds of different ways to do conservation. Um, and there's all kinds of types of land that's suitable for conservation. So whether it's farming or pastures, um, or natural areas, all of those things can be candidates.
When a landowner reaches out or that they are a good candidate for it, now they don't get money for putting it in a conservation, they get a tax benefit, is that correct? Can you explain any of that,
Yeah.
to somebody?
Yeah, so there are programs that will pay for an easement. Those are typically associated with like NRCS or a government program. Um, in terms of Heartlands, most of ours are donated easements. And so
Mhm.
we're not paying you for it, but you are donating it. And so when that happens, there is a pretty significant tax benefit from federal income tax that can be applied. Of course, I'm not a tax expert, so anyone who's considering a conservation easement should check with their tax advisor first. That's the disclaimer I have to say. But it's
Yeah, we
it's
always have those disclaimers. We
that's right.
can lead you to the water, but let somebody else make you drink.
That's right. Everyone's situation's unique. So, but if you do donate a conservation easement, usually there's a federal income tax deduction that's equal to the appraised value of the easement. And so basically the value is the difference between the appraised value of the land before the easement was applied to it and then the value after the easement was applied. So that difference is the deductible amount. Um, and it can reduce taxable income in the year the easement is donated. And then if it's a large amount, any unused portion of that can be carried forward on your tax return for 15 years. So you could be seeing deductions for a number of years, depending on your situation, of course.
Yes,
Farmers
and that
even have a better situation. Sorry to cut you off. Some farmers, if they get 50% of their income from farming, they can deduct up to 100% of their adjusted gross income with when they make the conservation easement gift. So uh, that's an
so
added
we'll
benefit for agricultural folks.
so we'll have to get out there and make sure people see about that one because they say farmers always like that. I think they call that straight line depreciation.
Yeah.
They brought that back this year, so that is a plus. And whenever that got taken away, this would have been a really good idea to have out there to be able to promote.
For sure.
So and the law and the carry forward is huge on this also.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, as far as your farmers too are probably people who do appreciate it staying ag for a long time and not see any kind of development. I mean, I think I've read one though where somebody could build within a 40-acre tract or something. It still gave some leeway for a developing a farmstead, but you couldn't just go develop it into subdivision or something, I think is what I read, maybe possibly on one of them. I guess there's some give and take on that or a little bit
Yeah.
or
Yeah. Conservation easements can be pretty flexible, actually. We want to obviously preserve what's important conservation wise, like the high quality soils or the forest. But we do have places where we've set aside what we call an authorized development area, and then if you can set that aside to build a second house. Sometimes people have their kids come and want to build a house on the farm. You can set aside land for that. Additional farm supporting structures can be built. Um, you can even have things like agritourism components that are included. So, like you have a pumpkin patch, and then if you ever been to those places where there's like a pumpkin, go pick your pumpkin, and then we have a bunch of rides and stuff and things for the kids to
Absolutely, and that
do.
where the kids
Yeah,
play in the corn.
Yeah,
Instead of
exactly.
the
Corn
sandbox,
maze.
it's the corn box,
Who
or the
doesn't love
corn
the corn?
maze, but yes.
So
Yep, they climb
those
over
things
top
are
the
okay.
round bales and slide down pipe, slides that
Yep,
are made out of culverts.
yep.
So,
Or
yes,
if you
we've
have
been to
like the
those.
roadside stand, or you have a space where you're selling something, that's all can be incorporated. And that's kind of a case by case basis, and it depends on the landowner and what their goals are. But there definitely is room for things like that.
Hmm. So
Right.
you work with
So,
the landowner and find out what is their goal and what
Yeah,
is, the end product to preserve, I guess, what they've picture preserving and what it looks like for them in the future. So,
yeah, absolutely.
okay.
yeah. So one of them that I get a lot of questions about, and you may or may not know the answer to this one here, but basically in the state of Illinois, since we love our taxes, and since they've changed the rules in Illinois on taxes on farm ground, that comes up quite a bit. So is having farm ground in a conservancy, does that do anything to adjust the taxes or tax rate on the actual ground itself, or even the so I'm just so basically you've got Illinois has the programs for managing timber, okay, but it's a
Hmm.
10-year type deal
Yeah,
on those. Okay, but if a farmer puts say 600 acres of tillable ground in this program, that can only ever be tilled, is there any normal year to year tax breaks for having it in the program? And that is a question that I get on a regular basis, trying to figure out
yeah.
what makes sense there.
Um, in Illinois right now, the property tax benefit for farm ground, that if it's enrolled in an easement, the potential would be, it lowers the value of the land, so that would potentially lower the amount taxed. But there isn't like a tax break on property taxes in Illinois right now for farmland. Now, for the recreational land, where you have like woods on your property, there are some programs where if you're enrolled in a conservation easement, you can file that with the Department of Natural Resources, and there's a decrease in your assessed rate for that piece of land, for that's in the easement. So that actually brings down the taxes on the recreational land a bit. Not quite as good as farmland, but close.
Right. Okay. So that was
Yeah.
one of those, but that's so really there's nothing in there that helps the year to year tax at this point in
Yeah.
time. Uh,
Unfortunately not. No.
by doing the easements. But that's one of those that I've had multiples ask me about that
Yeah.
one. So now at least I know the answer myself.
Yeah.
So as we do that. So so the let's go in. What are some common misconceptions about easements? And we'll see what you say, and I'll give you some of ours too. Brenda can chime in to hear this too. But yes, but
Yeah.
all right, go ahead. Let's see what you have.
Sure. I think one of the big ones that we hear is that people think that if you put a conservation easement on your property, it opens it up to the public, and that is not the case. Conservation easements just are on that piece of property, and it's still private property, unless you want to open it to the public, and that's your choice. But we do not require them to be open to the public. So that's a big one that we hear a lot. I think
Mm.
another one is that hunting is prohibited is one that we like. A lot of people make this assumption because we're a conservation group. They think we don't allow hunting, but that's actually the opposite of what we. There are some people that want to limit hunting on their land, and as we work through the process with them, we kind of work through that. But 90% of our easements allow for hunting, and it's uh, especially with deer hunting, it's a really good land management tool to keep them from over browsing an area if it's a natural area. So that's actually not something that's in the easement. We usually allow for hunting. What others have you heard? And I can tell you if it's true or not.
Well, so basically, like I say, the one that comes up is logging.
Mm,
Um, okay, you're not allowed to take it for timber. You're not allowed to cut firewood on it. So
Ah,
those are some that come up that they think.
yeah. And again, I think there are some that are like that, but again, it's up to the landowner. So usually, what we suggest is we develop what we call a stewardship plan as a part of it. We don't want clear cutting, for example, of the forest, but being able to have firewood or to cut um, trees that are, um, dying or hazardous or that are less desirable so that you want to have more sunlight come into your forest floor for oak growth, for example. Those are all things that are good and important for the forest. So forest management is actually important. And so we usually develop a plan as a part of it so that we're all both on the same page of what amount of trees could be cut and not cut. Um, there are some, like if you go through the state and get a nature preserve designation, there are limitations on cutting trees, but this is not that.
Gotcha. Okay. Another one here is that basically that the state now can come on to your property anytime they want to come onto your property.
Hmm. Ah,
Now,
no.
even though the conservancy is actually the one with the easement, they like to throw the state in there too.
Oh,
But
yeah. Uh, that we hear that a lot. People think it's government. And at least with Heartlands Conservancy, we're not a government. We're not affiliated with the government. So the state can't just come on your land with a conservation easement. We do reserve the ability to access the land. We come out once a year and do a site visit just to make sure the boundary is still being protected and whatever the agreement is still being upheld. But we call ahead and arrange a time that is beneficial to both of us. And we don't bring the state or anybody with us when we do that. It's just us.
I do have a question. So, if for some reason, I mean, and God forbid something happened to Heartland, but the
Mhm.
organization for some reason ceased to quit, what happens to that easement?
It would, if Heartland ceases to exist, it will go to the courts to determine what happens to our easements. However, we they would likely go to another land trust in the area. So the closest ones to us would be like Great Rivers Land Trust up in the Godfrey area, is an example. So our conservation easements would go to another conservation easement holding land trust.
Hmm.
that's good to know because that's one of the yeah I'd never thought about something to that effect. But
It's a good question.
and you don't as president and CEO you don't think about that either. But because you
Yeah,
want to make sure that it stays here. That's the way
it's
this
never,
works.
yeah, that will never happen.
Absolutely, absolutely. But life is just one of those things that throws some curveballs once in a while, and I know,
Yeah,
so you just what does happen. So,
yeah.
um one of the other questions, um, jumping into a conservation easement sometimes is a big step. Sometimes people
Mhm.
get their piece of land and they're excited just to have that piece of woods that they've had, but they don't know anything about land stewardship. Even
Right.
just in general, land stewardship 101. What can we do to make our, properties better, our woods more, of more value for everything, for conservation wise? Because as we walk land has changed a lot in the years that I've done, real estate.
Mhm.
The woods, it's getting harder and harder to find a beautiful piece of woods with the right trees and the light
Yeah.
getting to and the ones not taking over. In fact, I think we see a lot of woods dying lately. So what is it that somebody, if they wanted to be a better steward of the land, do you guys offer classes for better
Mhm.
stewardship of the land?
We do. We do offer a lot of training, and Um, it kind of varies year to year and based on the interests of what we're hearing from people in the community. We do one of the basic things that we like to train folks on is about invasive species, which is part of what kills those beautiful forests. So we do a lot of talks about how to identify and remove invasive plants like bush honeysuckle, for example, which causes all kinds of problems, and you can't even get into the forest because there's so much of it. So we show people how to do that and how to try to keep it out. It likes to come back for many years until you finally get it out of there. So that's one way. We do have other things, especially for if people are interested in volunteering. It's a great way to learn about management of natural areas. We also will train you up on how to do things. So we have a chainsaw training coming up, for example, for people who want to learn how to do that safely. We have other things like how to do seed collecting so you could collect seeds and then put them elsewhere on your property and grow a prairie or forest elsewhere. So all kinds of different opportunities to get involved. I would say volunteering is the best way to get hands-on experience, but that also helps us too. So it
Yeah.
helps all the natural areas that we protect.
Yeah. I mean, you guys do protect a lot of acres. It's not free to do that. There's cost. So
Yeah.
I'm sure that it takes a bit to make it all work and run. I mean, even dollars and manpower as far as that
Yeah.
goes.
It does.
So,
We, in addition to the 49 conservation easements we hold, we have 12 reserves that we own ourselves and take care of throughout the region. And so it does take a lot of time and money and manpower to take care of those things and make them nice for the community too. But anyone who wants to volunteer, we are incredibly grateful for your help and energy and enthusiasm. Donations are great too. That's how we keep things running. So, as a nonprofit, we're community supported. So, that's how we make all these different preserves throughout Southern Illinois happen.
Yep. And on those 12 preserves that we're talking about, those have how many have walking paths? Because I know that there's a few of them that actually are open to the public and have walking paths. So kind of where are those at?
Yeah, we have most of those are in Madison County. We have one, Pogue Sand Prairie in the Edwardsville area is a prairie restoration, but has some mowed paths that you can go through the prairie. We have a property in Pontoon Beach called Arlington Wetlands. So, talking about wetlands again, that's a great spot to see a really nice wetland, and there's all kinds of really nice birds that you can find there. And then we have in Swansea, in St. Clair County, there's the Clinton Hills Conservation Park, and we have a 6-acre garden that we've established there, which is basically a prairie restoration and has some different things going on in there over time that we're building. But there's nice walking paths through there, and the whole park itself is quite lovely. So those are some of the most recognizable areas that we have.
Right. Right. So the other question, whenever we look at conservancies and different organizations, so basically Heartland is that's one that we're most familiar with. I mean, so basically, but there's some other ones like I'm just gonna bring up so like Cliff Toppers for my own
Mhm.
knowledge. That's just a
Yeah.
different organization that kind of does the same thing, but are they a land trust also, or is there affiliations? Do they? I know they work together, okay,
Yeah.
but is there any kind of yeah.
What's the difference? Yeah. There's all kinds of different types of land trusts. Some do the conservation easement business. That's Heartlands does that. Clifftop, for example, does not. They just own land and take care of it, and it's open. Most of it's open to the public, I think. But we do work together as collaborators, partners in crime. Uh, we both have shared goals of conservation. Clifftop, I think, is um, has a particular service area and very focused on the bluff line in St. Clair, Monroe, and Randolph counties. And so we partner together in that area, and then we have a much larger service area that we cover. So yeah, there's lots of good overlap, and it's great to be able to work with the other groups. Um, More capacity to do more things.
There you go.
for sure.
That's it. Like I say, teamwork helps get more done.
Exactly.
Yep. So curiosity, east side of the state, west side of the state. What kind of difference have you noticed?
Let's see. Um, well, they're both I think there's like different pockets throughout southern Illinois that are just so different. I think But also we're all kind of unified in a certain, I guess, way of living. So, you've got Metro East here on the west side, which is a lot different than the rest of the area. Um, and then,
I was
when
just
we're,
curious. I was just curious if you've noticed that things move a little bit slower over there.
oh, oh,
Not,
and yes,
I,
yeah, it's
I
more, I
think it
like
can.
to
I
joke,
think it's very enjoyable, but it's just
yeah.
things are.
It it's
I joke that
interesting.
it's like New Orleans time, the Big Easy. It's a little slower.
Hmm.
That's kind of the vibe I get in the farther south and east parts of the state, which is kind of nice. I like it.
I would agree. I would agree. That's one of those, like I say, I tell people that the best example I had of that is I was at a closing one time selling a piece of property, and the closer said, "Well, it's lunchtime. All everybody come back at 1 o'clock."
That's great.
It's a true story. True story. It turned twelve
Wow.
o'clock. They shut down for lunch. Everybody had to leave and come back in an hour. So that's been a
It
Maybe
few
is
they know
years
the
now, but
secret.
It is absolutely different working in the Metro East where everybody's always go, go, go in a rush. How fast can we get things done? And then you
Yeah.
get over into another area and it's like, "I'm not going to push me. We're moving at our speed, you know?"
Yeah.
And I mean, it is somewhat refreshing that it's not that we're so used to go, go, go. It hits you like a brick wall sometimes, like, oh,
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah.
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 So if you were actually so whenever you're giving your sales pitch,
Mhm.
I mean, how's your opening line? How does that work? I mean, because I'm assuming people are calling you. I'm assuming, and
Mhm.
maybe and correct me if I'm wrong. Or are you going out and soliciting them?
We do both, but we do get a lot of calls. Often we get a lot of calls lately from people really concerned about seeing the land in their area being transitioned over into things that are pretty stark differences from what they're used to. So, and what I mean by that are things like, they're getting concerned about things like these warehouse sized data centers, for example, or we get calls from people who are concerned about the kind of industrial scale solar fields and things like that and taking up their farmland. And they're concerned about what will happen with their land once they're no longer here. And their family has farmed it for generations and they just don't, they're seeing everything else change around them. And so we get a lot of calls from those. And that's where I think we have some great tools that they can access to preserve their goals and keep that legacy alive in their family and for the land. So I think that's kind of the biggest kind of calls we're getting right now. We also solicit people too. There's certain areas where we are very interested in conserving land. So in Madison County, for example, there's an area of land where there's some endangered frogs and turtles that are only in this one area. And so we're trying to work with them to preserve land where we can, or work with them on different things just to make sure that the frogs and turtles can survive. So there's all kinds of different ways we come into the conservation conversation with folks.
Hmm.
Gotcha. Gotcha. All right. Well, like I say, as we start to get wrapped up here, I mean, again, so what's like I say, how can people help? How do they get a hold of you? Who do they talk to about the conservation easements, volunteering, donating? Um, what, here's time for your pitch.
Yeah, well, we love to hear from people in the region, whether you're considering a conservation easement. Some people reach out to us because they want to donate their land too. That's been a thing recently, and we're happy to accept those and meet the goals of whatever they have with their land. We have a really great website, heartlandsconservancy.org, which has answers to all of these questions that we talked about today and more. So if you really want to dig into how to conserve your land, we have a whole tab at the top that says conserve your land, and it really walks you through kind of all these different scenarios. But we're really happy to talk to you, and work through and see if it's right for you. Anna McAtee is our land conservation manager, and she takes all of these projects through the process and is really great to work with. So she can, if you want to call her, she's at 618-566-4453, extension 23. Her email is also on our website, so you can find her. You can also call me, and I'm happy to talk to. It's really great, all the people who really care about the region and care about conservation. And so I'm just really grateful to be able to talk to anybody who's interested in it.
There you go. Well, we appreciate it. We appreciate with working with Heartland throughout the years, and especially whenever somebody has an easement on there that we don't know or understand. You guys are always helpful on getting us to the bottom of say what is, what isn't, and what's going on. So, but we run across more and more of them in the sales side of it. But we look forward to continuing to work with you guys in the future.
Great. It's great to work with you guys.
All right, thanks.
Same.
Thank you.
All right.
You guys. Thank you for joining us today on the Peddler Perspective. If today's episode sparked a thought, a smile, or new idea, share it with someone who'd enjoy the ride. Until next time, we'll be here, working the land, serving our clients, and bringing you more stories worth hearing.